Hello, everyone. It is so good to see you all. I'm so excited for this wonderful review. I'm back. I'm back, witches, doing a review, and I'm so excited. I've been doing, basic binges for a while, and I love doing that. It's also amazing, but this is where my home's at, doing reviews. So I'm so excited to be doing this one. Welcome to Nom Watch Review. If you don't know what this is, part of Nom Talk Network. On this show, we review the latest film drop or throwback celebrating a milestone while eating and drinking our favorite movie, snacks, and drinks. I'm your host, Jordyn Orozco, and right now I'm enjoying some lovely Wingstop wings. I got some barbecue wings, some lemon pepper wings, and some Coke Zero, since apparently that's like the drink of the channel, since everybody drinks Coke Zero. It's like Alejandro, freaking Bill, everybody just drinks Coke Zero, and some hot sauce and some blue cheese dressing. So I'm so excited. But I want to get to my guests, who I haven't seen one in such a long. I haven't seen either of them in a long time. Let's be real. And I saw Eric. I saw you like 2 days ago, maybe.
Yes,
but I. But Yaya, I haven't seen you in a very long time. It is so good to see both of you. Eric, what are you chomping on? What are you drinking? What are you doing?
I am chomping on some Nerds gummy clusters. You can't see it because it's blurry, but Nerds gummy clusters. Love these things. They're so addicting. Get the candy away from me, especially this month. And then some Voodoo Ranger, the pumpkin one that we're drinking. Yeah, I love it. It's so good.
So good.
Like I love like IPAs, and then Voodoo came out, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is delicious.
It's like basic bitches have pumpkin spice. We have pumpkin beer.
Correct.
And it's just like there's so many pumpkin. I'm like, oh my god, I love it. Anyway, yeah, it is good to see you. I love you. What are you eating? What are you drinking? What's going on?
I am eating dinner, so I have some diet salad because gotta stay healthy. It's basically cabbage with some like cilantro and like tofu and all that fun stuff. I'm also eating jellyfish. I don't know if you can see the jellyfish, and some brown sugar smoked chicken. And I am drinking some. What am I drinking? Actually, I don't know. Plum juice.
She's like, I don't know.
I don't know what I'm drinking, but I'm drinking.
It's poison.
Yes, it's poison in my like little fancy like little skull cup.
Never let anybody knows it's poison, or else they're not going to drink it.
Yeah.
See,
she's drinking her own.
I'm the opposite. So I'm like, please tell me it's poison so I can consume it.
That's fair. That's
enough of this life. Yeah, it's great. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you both. And if y'all haven't guessed what the spoilers are, what we're doing, what we're talking about, we are talking about the wonderful and amazing Hocus Pocus 2, which, if you are a millennial, if you are a little bit older than that, you've been expecting this film for a long time. And it was literally just, I watched it with my mom, and then I watched it with my two nieces, their mom, and then her mom. So like, it was just like a family affair, and I was so excited to watch it. And I'm really glad I did watch it the way that I watched it. So let's just start off with why we're here talking about Hocus Pocus 2, right? I think for me, the beginning was, this was something I talked about last night in our stream, where this was just a family favorite, where I watched this with my parents, like when it was on TV. And it was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily taboo in my house to talk about like witchcraft and like all that stuff, right? Like, in some houses it was. And watching Hocus Pocus was something that was just a staple, right? And then you get it on VHS, right? And then you watch it and it's just like, oh, cool. And then I ended up naming my cat after Binks, right? Because my cat was black, had like, the eyes and all of that stuff. And she was such a sweet and little gentle little baby, a little fur baby. And it just was a staple that stayed with me for a very long time. And I definitely loved Hocus Pocus. It was a Halloween movie that was around the time when like Halloween Town, all that stuff started coming out. And it wasn't necessarily like, people weren't like rushing to watch it. But it was something where it was like, if you did watch it, you knew, right? Like you were a part of the club, right? And so I loved this movie. Let's start with you, Yaya. How did you get introduced to Hocus Pocus, and then what made you want to watch Hocus Pocus 2?
So same, I think with most millennials, watch it on Disney Channel, especially during Halloween time. And of course, I wasn't old enough when it first came on in 1993, and I think a lot of people like forget that it's actually a really old movie. Yep. And like because it played every single year on Disney Channel, so everyone always had that first time watching it. And for me, I probably was around 6 or 7 when I first watched it on Disney Channel, and I loved it as a kid. And I remember it's just like, I was also a coward as a kid, so it did kind of freak me out, especially Billy. When I was little, when Billy first comes out, I was like, oh. And of course, now I love Billy. Go figure.
Right.
Go figure. He's also played by my favorite actor of all times, Doug Jones.
Yes.
Doug Jones is my favorite actor of all times. So I'm like, when I found out as like an older like teenager or adult, I was like, oh my god, and I loved it even more. But no, like legit, I love that movie. Like every year, I would always like watch it, and like if for some reason it got like probably when you get to your tweens and you're like, I don't like kid stuff anymore, and then it like kind of went back into like nostalgia kind of feel for me until probably around my college years where I was like, do people really is this an actual movie? Does this exist? Do people know about it? And I went to find it again, of course, find out that of course everyone loves it. And so it's one of my staple like Halloween movies, watch it every year. And Hocus Pocus 2, of course, like announced, it's always going to be some hesitation because, one, it's made 30 years later. 2, it's made by Disney now currently, who is just trying to get money out of the millennials. I'm gonna be completely honest. So I had some like, very like I had some hesitations, but I was like gonna be like, give it a try, give it an honest to God try, and like not be too judgmental. So that's like, yeah. But
yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you in the fact that like it was something that like if you watched it at the time it came out, you were like a huge fan, right? Mm-hmm. Like, or you didn't watch it, which I didn't know anybody that hadn't watched it or that hated it, right? It was like, this was a very unique film that came out. It had a very unique story. It had a very unique script. And you have 3 powerhouses, right? You have like Kathy Najimy, you have Bette Midler, and you have Sarah Jessica Parker, who like they both get known for other things, right? Like later on in their careers. But in that moment, it was like, this was like a really good casting call, right? Like it was really good. Eric, what was your introduction to Hocus Pocus? And what led you to really want to watch Hocus Pocus 2?
My introduction with it, I actually was right at that perfect age when it came out in 93, that it was like, take your kids to see this Halloween movie that's not coming out in Halloween, but take them to see it. And from the moment I saw it, I loved it. One, I was a musical theater kid when I was little. So Bette Midler, like I'm like an old school gay, as people call it. But Bette Midler drew me in, and Sarah Jessica Parker and everything like that. So once I saw it on film and like the costumes and the campiness of it and the whole musical number, I Put a Spell on You, just drew me in. After that, I would go to like Blockbuster when Blockbuster was a thing, and I would rent it like every time that I was getting a babysitter or something like that. I would rent that, and it just became a staple in my life. And watch it every year. And then it started coming out on Disney Channel when I got a little bit older, and then Freeform does it every year like 15, 20 times during the month of October now. But when I saw the second one, like the preview for it, like the glimpse, like we're gonna do it, I got so excited. And the fact that almost every single one of them came back even pulled me even in anymore. So I was super excited to see how this movie was. And so yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, we had all heard rumors that they were going to do Hocus Pocus 2, and we were like, oh, okay, yeah, right, like whatever. And then when the teaser trailer came out, I was like, oh, this is a fucking thing. Like it's happening, right? So I was so excited when it came out, and to watch it with family was just beautiful and amazing. I want to get to some of the comments. Q said, hey all, this is going to be good. Can't wait to get into it. I had 3 meat pizza rolls. I wish I had meat pizza rolls. That sounds so bomb right now. Drinking soda as usual, hanging with you. hanging with you all, my favorite peeps. Oh, I love that, Q. My gosh. Thank you. Whatever you do tonight, and I can't dictate what you all do. Please don't redeem third person. Please don't do it. We love you. Just don't do it.
Now my question is, do all of us have to speak in third person?
Well, if it's done, and no, damn it, I'm not going to talk about it anyway. So let's get into what we would rate this film first, and then we'll get into the why. So let's start with you, Eric. Out of 5 popcorn buckets, what would you rate Hocus Pocus 2?
Out of 5 popcorn buckets, 5 popcorn buckets. What?
Steph just said, for 5 minutes, anyone who speaks must speak in third person. Really? You know what? Okay.
All
right, Yaya.
Oh, it's not right now. Not right now. Not right now.
I said not right now, but when? But when?
No one. Okay. No, it's not redeemed. It's not redeemed. I'm watching it.
Okay, thank you.
Just like I know. Okay, Yaya, what would you rate this film out of 5 popcorn buckets?
So I guess I'm for once the lowest. I rated it 3, and I think it, no matter what, I still definitely got influenced by the nostalgia. Like, I did, honest to God, try to give it a completely clean slate. Like, try not to like compare it with like the original, because it's never going to live up to the original. Like almost no movie lives up to the original, almost, except for Hellboy 2. Anyways, anyways,
with who in it?
With Doug Jones. Doug Jones.
Want to throw that out there?
Yeah, I know. I just had to. But I actually was gonna rate it lower. I was legit gonna give it 2.5. I went to full 3 because of Doug Jones, because he can't do no wrong. But I think it was just like, for me personally, watching it, it just seems a little forced to me. And some of the jokes seem forced, some of the stuff seems really forced. And
I do get that.
Yeah, and there's like several things too. Like I feel like they dumb it down, but like the fact that they had to rehash what happened within the last like 30 minutes, like every like scene, kind of bothered me a lot. It's like kids can understand what's happening. You don't have to constantly be like, oh my God, like look what she did and this happened. Like when they were in like the dungeon, like they're like, oh, da 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 da. And then like she basically rehashed the whole beginning sequence in like 2 seconds. And I was like, that's unneeded. And yeah. And like for me, if anyone, like whenever I'm on here, like the thing for me is always pacing. And I felt like this movie's pacing was horrendous for me. Like there was build up that didn't need to be built up. And there was no build up for things that needed to be built up. So.
I mean, and I agree with you on that one, even though I gave it a 5, like spending like 20 minutes at a Walgreens.
Yeah. And I'm really upset with how they actually turned up. There was no buildup whatsoever to them returning. And that pissed me off. I was watching it with my cousin and we were just like, are you serious? Like when she lit, I was like, no, this can't be. This has to be one of those fake, like, this is going to happen. And it doesn't. But it ended up happening. And I was like, no, they don't come back like this. That was such a bad intro for me personally. But yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so I definitely do a 4.5 out of 5. I loved the whole thing, and for multiple reasons. But also, I do have to agree with Yaya on some points, and definitely in some points of my own. I felt like this was a movie for the fans, right? Like it was a movie that was made for the fans, and if you haven't seen the first one, there were some things that you'd be like, well, what the fuck's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, any movie that you have like 2 attached to, you're like, okay, I might have to see the first one, right? If it was like Hocus Pocus, like the bitches are back, right? Or the witches are back, it would be a different story because people would be like, okay, I might be able to watch it and not have to watch the first one. But because it was Hocus Pocus 2, like there was some inclination that you had to watch the first one, right? And so watching it, and that was when I was texting my best friend at the time, and she was like, I wanted to watch it with you, blah blah blah. But I was like, hey, like if you were like we can like watch it, but if you don't remember the first one, there's going to be things that you don't remember. And if you watch it, you're going to be like, what the fuck is going on? And it's going to be weird for you. And so that was the only thing I think I had issues with, along with like some characters being obsolete and just like not like you didn't need to be there. Like Mike, the love interest of
the jock one.
yeah, I was like, you didn't need to be there. You know what I mean? Like you didn't need to do that. There was no reason for you to do that, right? And I would go as so far to say that the individual that gave them the candle, I'm like, what was the lesson? Like there was no punishment for you. Like you were the reason why, and there was no right. So there were some things that I was like, oh,
I hate
like,
that they also
care.
retconned a lot of things from the original too. It was like they changed it, and I was like, no,
don't do that.
You know,
you're not doing that. Okay, so we have a question from our lovely producer, Steph. What is your candy apple go-to? Because apparently the entire time the mayor, who I thought, I love him, he's been in a bunch of roles that he's been funny in and he's great, was getting a candy apple, right? What is your candy apple go-to? Let's start with Yaya. If you eat candy apple, what is your candy apple go-to?
I only had one type of candy apple in my life.
What is it?
It's the ones that we used to sell at high school. The one that's covered in the red like candy like thing.
Yes.
And that's the only type I've eaten. I haven't had candy apple like since then, but like that was my go-to. Was the red one that I dyed your like whole half of your face red. Got
and you get that crunch, that like
yes, and it had like
I'm a vampire.
And it's like it gets everything sticky. All the high school teachers hated it, to the point that we weren't allowed to eat it in class anymore. But yes, that is my candy apple go-to.
Nice. Eric, what is your candy apple go-to?
Funny enough, that is exactly the same candy apple go-to I go to. It's just iconic, that shiny red coating, and then just the crunch of it. That's my go-to every time. It's so delicious. Haven't had one in years because super sweet now, but that's my go-to.
My go-to 100% is the candy apples from the Disneyland park. It's always the green ones. I think those are the they're like a little bit sour. I forgot what those are called.
Granny Smith?
Are those Granny Smith? Is Granny Smith green?
Yes, Granny Smith apples are green.
Okay, my bad. Okay, so I love Granny Smith apples, and then they're covered in chocolate, and then the ears are like marshmallow covered in chocolate. I don't like nuts on anything. Like, surprise, surprise. I don't like nuts on anything. No, do not give me fucking nuts. If you want to put sugar on it, if you want to put caramel on it, absolutely. I'm totally down for that, but don't put fucking nuts on my apple. Like, don't do that. And so I think that's my candy apple go-to, especially like if I go to Disneyland, which is like once or twice a year, right? Because it's like so expensive. I get a candy apple. My mom's like, get me one. And so like, it's just great. So that's my candy apple go-to. But let's go into Hocus Pocus 2. Now, for those of you who are on here and haven't seen it, too bad, you're going to get spoiled.
About Eric's popcorn bucket?
I said it. I don't think I talked about it though.
Yeah,
Eric,
we got distracted with the third person thing that's gonna inevitably come for
That's
us.
why I'm scared. I'm like skipping shit. I'm like, Okay, Eric, what is your popcorn bucket and why?
Mine was 5 out of 5 popcorns. A lot of the reasoning for that was the nostalgia factor of it. Like, I get exactly everything that you were saying, but growing up in the age of Hocus Pocus 1, just being like the one that I was growing up with, watching this and how I watched it, I went to like a viewing party where we had like a movie screen on, snacks, and everybody was like pajamas and everything. There's a bunch of people. So like,
I love that.
The ambiance of how I watched it too, because we did a double feature, definitely did impact that. Plus, I just love it anyway. So yeah, 5 out of 5. But I completely agree with both of you.
Keep everything hydrate.
Hydrate.
I'm gonna do a soda. Sorry, I just shoved a gigantic wing in my mouth. So let's address the story, because the story, I think, is the main central part of it. And I feel like this was a more lighthearted story than the first one, which ended dark, which was a little bit more darker and was a little bit more scarier. So we have this like group of friends, right? And I love them. They're all diverse. You know, you have one that's Black, you have one that's Latina, and then you have one that's white, right? And they're friends. They're in high school, assumingly so. And we have the main character, who is played by the lovely Whitney Peak, Becca, who is just awesome, a really awesome, just like main character throughout the whole thing. And then you have Belisa Escobita, who plays Izzy, and then Lilia Buckingham, who plays Cassie. And so these three friends clearly have had history. They're like, you know, a trio of friends that just celebrate and do things together. But in the beginning of the movie, clearly there's some tension between Whitney, between Becca, Izzy, and Cassie, right? Like Cassie's like the person that's like has a boyfriend and, you know, doesn't really hang out with the main two anymore. And the main two are like, oh, cool. And I love the fact that the main two are like Black and brown. I'm like, yes, love it. And we just sort of see this like tension, like throughout the entire movie, right? But in the very beginning of the movie, we see Winnie, we see Sarah Jessica, we see the earlier versions of them, which the individual
did so good.
Yes, the Taylor Henderson, who played young Winifred, absolutely fucking nailed it.
Nailed it.
Yes.
Oh,
all of them nailed it. And
yes.
I was so happy to see that she still treated her sisters like shit. Like, like even at a young age. But like the fact that her teeth, the hair, everything.
The gestures, like, you know, the
mannerisms, just like the way she would like look and like this little girl did her work to be like, I have to be Winifred. Mm-hmm. But my own Winifred as well.
Yeah, and I loved it because it went further back than the original one, which is like people just, you know, they hung them, you know, and then that was the legend and the tale, right? But this one was like went further into it, where Billy Butcherson was there, and he's like, "I just kissed you, like it wasn't anything more, right?
I wasn't actually your love." Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And then it was like, it was the mayor or the pastor Reverend. Who was like
the Reverend.
Yes, the Reverend, who ended up being like a descendant of the mayor, or like the mayor and descendant of and it was just I thought that was just so cool to see the beginning of that, and then them meeting like the main witch in the forest who gave them basically book, right, who is attracted to witches and power and all that stuff. But you know, the thing that I kind of thought was cheesy was the Magica spell that was like in the beginning, and it was like hinted at, and I was like, come on, you gave that away in the first like the first 10-15 minutes of the movie. You gave it away, and I was like, I knew what was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen from jump. But I did like the witch. I thought she was really good. Also a character that I was just like, we could have done without her, and they could have found book just automatically, and you know, something. But
I did find it. I did like it. I did see an article that witch, Danny from the original Hocus Pocus, they're wearing the same costume.
Yeah.
So that's the witch
they are.
It's
Danny made her costume out of that witch's outfit.
Yeah, her portrayal. Yes, it's like an Easter egg to the original.
I
movie.
love it. I didn't even notice that. See, shit, I didn't notice while I was watching. And then the story evolves into the magic shopkeeper giving them a candle. Yeah, which I have huge problems with that character.
Yes.
Just because I'm like, what was the point, right? Like, there was no point.
I have to think that they brought him in because that was the only way they were going to bring Billy in. Because however much I love Billy, I thought his storyline was kind of pointless.
Sure. I mean, in this film, absolutely. In the first one, no. But in this one, I was like, for what?
It was
like
pushing.
Yeah, there was nothing, you know. And I will have to say, I do love the little ode to the black cat that like popped up,
and
I was like,
cute.
And she's like, I know that's you, Thackeray. It's like,
and like almost cried. I was like almost cried, and then when I saw it the second time, I was like, oh my god, yeah. But yeah. So that part, and then just the whole story unravels, right? Like throughout the entire film, and I will say there were times when I was like, this is a little redundant. It's a little boring. But overall, I feel like it was entertaining enough to hold me, to like captivate me, where the boring parts were like short enough to where like everything like picked up in the end. And in the scenes. Yaya, how did you feel about the story of the whole movie? Did you feel like it could have done better? Did you feel like it captivated you? Did you feel like it did the movie justice?
Oh my gosh. So, okay. I'm gonna start ranting. One, as much as I love the witch character, the mother, that's actually what I hated about that whole beginning. So I feel like Disney's been doing this for like since Maleficent got they Maleficented the Sanderson sisters. Basically, it's made them into a very sympathetic character. It's like, oh my god, it's like, she loves her sisters, and that's the reason why. While in the first movie, it's very much like they sold their soul to Satan.
Yeah.
Like they're very much master and that kind of thing. And then like I feel like that's the thing. Like from what I got from the first movie, from what I understood from the first movie when I was like watching when I was young, was that they sold their soul, and they like I always thought that they made Book, because Book was actually, wasn't it stated that he was made from human skin in the first movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then I always thought that basically there were like a long line of witches. Like when they reference mother in the first one, it's actual their mother who taught them like probably like spells, not just like a random lady that just happens to be there and becomes a crow and disappears and that kind of stuff. So that's actually what as much as I love that beginning sequence, I felt like it totally like took away from that danger, that like thing that made Winifred so like attractive in the beginning. Like, she's dangerous. She's supposed to be. They killed and murdered children and ate their souls and turned like her, like Emily Thackeray Binks, into a cat. They're not good people. They're not supposed to be sympathetic, but they did that in this movie, and that really rubbed me in the very wrong way. And I was like, you don't need to do that. Especially, and anyways, that was one of my big thing, was like, and I do love that they had like, when I was watching it, they had clips from the original movie, but because the movie's from 93, the resolution is so different. It's so compared to everything else. And it was really funny. But so like I enjoy so like, while in the beginning I love the three little girls. They did amazing. They embodied like, Sarah, Mary, and Winifred so well. Those kids are going places. Okay. And then story-wise, I'm just like, I personally did not like that this was more of a coming of age movie for Becca, about the whole like, oh my god, it's like a girl like returning in the da. I just felt like the story itself was just too Disney-fied. Like, it was too nice. It was too lighthearted. It was too meant for young children, even though their market was supposed to be like millennials like us. But it very much like as I said, I feel like they really dumbed it down. It got too good, like it got too like safe for kids kind of thing. And I was kind of like, with that. And story-wise, as I said, like I agree, there's a lot of characters I felt is completely unneeded. And like the fact that they had to have like, what's his name? Elliot? No, the storekeeper guy. Like, they needed
Gilbert.
him, and Gilbert, yes, Gilbert. Thank you. They had Gilbert, and he's like, oh yeah, I saw you like Halloween flying, and I went to the graveyard. And I'm like, do we really need that part? I know you'd have to do it for the story, but did we really need that retcon, like that whole part? And I thought it was it was okay. It wasn't bad and wasn't good, but it's like, well.
Yeah. I think you make really good points, where it was like there were certain parts of this movie, and I think those were like I don't want to say boring parts, but those are the parts where I was like, was this necessary?
It lagged.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, like I get that you have to connect the dots a little, but that's like going past the dots, and like you're trying to make a picture that I don't know if people who hadn't seen it, or even people that had seen it, would get, right? Erric, what did you think about the story? Let's go into that.
This is one part where I did find it lacking, where I completely agree with you guys. They were bringing up stuff that it just felt pointless. Just like the magic, I felt like they stayed in that magic shop way too long. Like, oh, you're a witch, you're 16. Like, okay, you're beating that with a dead horse. We get it that it's your 16th birthday. But I completely agree. Like the whole hunt with Billy, everything like that, like watching them play games and everything, that was pointless. But like I said, the only reason they did it because they need to put Billy back into the movie, and I feel like that's the only reason that they could get him in there, because the story was dumbed down and way more for children. I have to say probably why is because 93 was a very different time to where they could get away with it being a little bit more darker and a little bit more gritty, to whereas now a kid falls on a playground and skins their knee and they get rushed to the ER. So I get it, but also I do understand that the story did lack in that, because they're trying to be safe for audiences out there so they can make their money back, which is unfortunate because it's, as you said, Disney-fied.
Yeah, and I think overall the story was okay, and I think for me the positive aspect was there was no leading males in this, right? They were all secondary, and it was females that were empowered, and it was the whole Becca trio that basically came together at the end, and it was Becca's powers that basically like protected and saved them, and it was her realization that like she was like, no, like this is what's going to happen right to you, and it was Book that basically was like, oh, I choose you, Pikachu, because you know what I mean, because it was almost like Book knew, right, like what was going to happen. And I kind of like the fact that there was no like lead male savior, which in the first one it was sorry, I'm like choking on wings here. Yeah, I'm choking on chicken. It was you had the main, you had you had Max, you had Danny, and then you had the girlfriend, right? I forget what her name was.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, Allison.
Allison?
It is Allison. Yeah.
So
you had them three. And you had Max, which is who the basic person was to light the candle, to save it, to be like, oh, you're gonna do this. And then in this one, it was three girls, and I loved that. I loved the fact that like my nieces could watch this and be like, yeah, girl power. Like, cool, it was great. And so I think like from that like story aspect, I think that was a positive that came out of it, right? Where I was just like, yeah, it could have been corny, it could have been done better. But at the end of the day, I was like, it was mostly it was women that basically saved the day, right? And I was like, yes, like female empowerment. I love it.
This movie gave me what I wanted from Craft Origins, if you guys remember that movie. This is what I wanted that to be, but this actually gave it to me with like the women empowerment and them taking control.
Sure. And then you have your original like trio, who is like they're all three women, and they were they were blasphemed by men, right? Who thought they were whores and blah 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 and all that stuff, and they came back and just did it with style, did it with that. Let's talk about just like a little bit of the musical aspect to this, right? When they came back, they did a number, and then when they hypnotized the crowd, they did a number, right? I have a problem with the latter, right? Like, because it wasn't necessarily hypnotizing the crowd, and then once they found the individual, it was like, oh, they snapped out of it. I was like, no, that's not what happens. I do want to say, oh shit, okay. Q says, hold on, wait. Q says, I have friends who are pagans and Wiccan, and they are not evil at all. And just today, a mother from Texas claimed that the movie is hypnotizing kids to the devil. And he said, I'm like, what? LOL, ridiculous. The movie's fictional. Yeah, like nobody's hypnotizing anybody to the devil. Q redeemed the we are going to ban word ban OMG or oh my god. So we can't say OMG or oh my god.
Okay. Only together, right? We can't separate.
Can't be like, oh my god, we can't do that.
Yeah, okay, cool. I was like, can we not say?
But I love the
oh?
way you think. I love the way you think. You were like, can we get around this?
I know, it's like, only in English?
See, we just have to write on a piece of paper now and just be like,
Ay, Dios mío.
Yeah, what Maya?
Yes, so let's talk about the musical numbers. Let's go to you first, Eric. What did you think about them? Did you think they were necessary?
Yes, I definitely think that a musical number was necessary for Hocus Pocus 2. I even give it 2 musical numbers. The 3 did feel excessive. Especially like Yaya said, like they're coming back should have been more epic than just this random musical number. Like, okay, you're bringing these 3 powerful witches back. Why are they busting out into song? And it's weird. The second number, liked it for what it was, but I agree with you, Jordyn, that like they hypnotized the crowd, and once they found their objective, it just stopped. To whereas in the original one, they were dancing until dawn. Like they kept going into those witches were defeated. So that's what I wanted more from that. I did love that whole like scene though where they lost the contest. But that last number as well, even though it did sound good and it got us a little bit more of the witches, I think just that second and the last number should have been necessary, not even that first number. Just because it was kind of like Disney used to do with like a closing number at the end of their shows and stuff like that. It reminded me of that, but it did feel excessive with the music a little bit for me.
Yeah, I
it wasn't even as good as I Put a Spell on You. Sorry,
it
wasn't as good. It wasn't as captivating as that.
It gave Coyote Ugly in a way that wasn't pretty. Like, do you know what I mean? And I was like, damn, like what? You pick this song? Like, right? I get it. But yeah. So Yaya, what did you think about the musical numbers?
I hated it. I hated it so much.
Like, I've been waiting to say this.
Okay, so again, I said Hocus Pocus needs that one song, which was I Put a Spell on You in the original one. But this one, it just wasn't it. Again, they come and they're performing, and I did like the part where they're like, who are they performing for? And then they pop up you. I like that part. I thought that was actually like, okay. Clever. Snaps. I know. It's like clever. But I hated like I'm gonna like one way or another. I'm like, why? That is not a powerful song. It's not like a thing. I'm sorry. Like I love that song because I like remember like literally in my childhood and all these like different shows, but it's just not for Winifred. No. That's not like, I don't know. I think that they try to go campy, but went too campy. And the only thing I did have to disagree about, like, it's like, when their spell breaks, I think it's because it's with what they want, their intentions with that bewitching. In the original one, she actually just like dance until like thing. That's what they did because that's what her spell was meant to. Well, this spell was just meant for her to find the mayor. So I guess like, with how she worded it, they found the mayor and then the incantation breaks. So that one I kind of agree with, I was okay with because it was just like, that's how she worded the spell as opposed to being like, bring him to me.
Yeah.
Then it would have been different if like that. But no, I'm sorry. I did not like any of the musical numbers. And I was like, it's not going on my Halloween playlist.
It's not giving.
It's not.
Oh,
not giving at all.
Yeah. And, for me, the first one, I was like, interesting. The second one, I was like, that's the song you pick. Like they could have done like "We Will Rock You," right? Like by Queen. Like they could have done Queen. They could have done anything else except for
One
Way or Another.
I mean, that was a choice.
That was a deliberate choice, and I was like,
What?
Yeah, but I do like the fact that they brought in the original like spell words from the original, and I thought that was really good. Yes. And I was like, okay, cool. Like cool, but pick a different song. Like it's fine.
I do have to say they kind of what they did to this movie is have you ever heard about the like Disney movies like the Disenchanted or whatever movies with like that's what they did to this. Like the decom musicals that they've been doing, that's what they did to this movie, which is stupid.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Let's go into sort of like how the whole movie ended, how it sort of played out in the end. So the whole trio situation with in the beginning, not with Winifred, but specifically. Sorry, now I'm burping because I choked on chicken. That's freaking amazing, wonderful. What was her name? I'm in Hocus Pocus. Is it Bella? No, not Bella.
Becca?
Becca. Thank you. The whole Becca trio,
Edward.
where it was Edward and Jasper and Alice. That's who it was. Yeah,
Jacob.
Yeah. Oh my God. Really? I really said Bella. But it was with Becca and that trio. I feel like there could have been a stronger story with that. I feel like there could have been more of a background with that because we did know, but we didn't know why there was such like an aversion to what's her name? To Cassie. Like we didn't know. Like we did know, but like we didn't know. And even Cassie was like acting like a weirdo, like, in the beginning, and you're like, why is there such like a weird thing? And then it was like when she had the party, she like was like, oh yeah, well, because you told my dad on me. And I was like, well, yeah, because you're the mean girl in this entire movie. Like you're the one that like had the party and like had all this stuff going on and all that stuff. And but it was for safety issues. And then that wasn't even addressed. It was just like, oh, like they're coming here. And then she's like, well, you hate me. And I was like, no, they did it because like there's things going on like in the town and like you didn't realize that. And then all of a sudden, like she's like, okay, I'm with you girls. And then like, they did the whole protection bubble, like all that bullshit. So I feel like that would have been stronger if there was more of a story that had gotten developed with Becca and her crew, which I feel like didn't get established in this film. And that was sort of something that I was like, I didn't see it. Like with Becca and her other friend, I was like, cool, like y'all are like friends till you die. Like that's what's going on. Yeah. How did we feel about that, Eric? How did we feel about that, like sort of dynamic and how it played out in the end?
I agree with you. It was kind of sorted. I mean, granted, they hadn't been friends for 4 months and they like dropped her and she dropped them. So that was very quick. I dropped best friends years after that. Stuff's been happening. So 4 months is kind of ridiculous. But no, it did move too quickly for them to forgive her and everything go back. I did like the joint and that it was a new coven at the end of it. I am one of the people that did enjoy the end of this, that is the way that it went, because I did think that Winnie really did care for Sarah and Mary. So like I did enjoy the end of that. I agree with you, Yaya, that it could have gone more evil, but I lowered my expectations with this age of Disney viewership.
Wait. Let's go to Yaya. Let's go to the giggling beauty over here.
I think I said earlier, I hated that this was more of a coming of age movie. I thought that was a little like, I also found it really funny. There was basically essentially a you're a wizard, Harry, like moment. She was like, you're a witch, and in my head immediately I was like, you're a wizard, Harry. I was like, I was like, why is that there? But I'm just like, again, I didn't didn't mind the ending as if like, you know, that part, because it's very much established that's why she cares about her sister. But I hate the whole like she goes like, oh, what is that feeling? Oh, and I'm like, is she having a Grinch moment? Is she a Grinch? Where like her heart grew like 10 times the size that day kind of moment. I was like, that whole monologue, I knew that it was supposed to, again, it's supposed to make her sympathetic. It's supposed to like redeem her character, that she does all the evil things just because she loves her sister, like killing and eating children's souls because she loves
she does
her
it for her.
But it's like but that's the thing. That's what's not established in this movie, that they totally covered from in the previous movie. Everything she does is for power. But in here, from the beginning, it's very much, oh, she loves her sister so much and she treats them bad, but she actually really loves her sister. And it's like, I understand like wanting power to protect those you love. I understand that. But that, I was just like, I don't know. I'm just like, I did not like, I think that just, it's not the winner. It's not a Winifred. Not something in like OG Winifred would do at all. Yeah. And I think that's for me was just like why I'm one of the people, I guess many people that don't like the endings, because for me personally, I'm just like, that's not Winifred anymore. It's completely, yeah. And you guys saw the post-credit scene, right?
Oh my God, no.
What?
There's a post-credit scene.
There's a post-credit scene? What?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, tell us, because it's all about spoilers here.
Okay, so it's not like a huge thing, but the post-credit scene is supposed to, you see Cobweb next to a box and it says BF number 2, BFC number 2. The black flame candle. There's another black flame candle that's supposed to hint at, I think it's supposed to keep in like, oh, if Disney wants to do another movie, they can. This establishes that.
So I didn't see that scene, but I know they did an interview with Sarah Jessica Parker, and she was like, yeah, there are talks about them doing a like spin-off or something like that, and she would love to come back. I'm like, you can't bring back these 3 witches. You can't.
No. And not with this, especially is the way that they ended it this time. At least with the last one was like, you know, they explode and pew 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 pew. It's like goodbye, pew, 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 pew. This one, they're all like, oh, like, you know, they can't come back, but it sends you to them. And it's supposed to be the fact that they redeemed her character. They can't bring her back after this. No. And the fact they had that. And I'm just like, if we're going to get another Hocus Pocus in 30 years, I'm sorry, Ben Miller's not going to be here.
I will say in that last scene of the movie, there was that, the bird that the witch was in the forest. Yeah, there was that in the very last scene, and I was like, that left it open for some things. But things we don't know. Was
still, when we got into modern day Salem, that bird showed up too. Yes. So yeah, but they never touched base on the mother ever again. So that wasn't.
So I just feel like this film had a lot of things that it didn't connect the pieces too well. And that's what really bothered me, was like everything was just so scattered and just everywhere that it didn't touch very well.
I think the way that they tried to do that and the way that I saw it was, it was more of like sisters and like all that stuff. But I do feel like the lesson that sort of Winnie learned and didn't learn in the end, Winnie didn't learn in the end. Wow, I cannot spoke today. Okay. Was what you're like, fuck. Was the fact that she knew the spell was only going to enhance, like, obviously it enhanced everybody's power, right? But she did it for herself, and she did it knowing that it would only enhance like that specific, her power, right? And it wasn't necessarily said or like done, but you could see it in like the way that it played out. And then it was Becca finally realizing, and the Coven finally realizing that like, oh shit, like she's gonna fuck everybody else over, right? And then that was the lesson that had to be learned, which is why Book went to Becca, because Becca was like, you can't do this because it's gonna ultimately, like, you're gonna fuck yourself over. And eventually she did. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh shit, like I actually care about people. Oh my God, now gonna go into like mystical elf dust, right? And then like, oh, where are we going? So that was a weird connection for me that I saw, but also like it wasn't necessarily implied, which I get your point, where it was like this was never about her. Like it was mostly about like, oh, like I love my sisters and it's great. Like they're still cool and it's awesome. Eric, what did you think about the ending? What did you think about the final recap of the whole thing?
The ending of it, I loved it. I do see your guys' issues with it, but I do love that she did finally come to terms with, oh shit, I actually do love my sisters way more than I actually thought I did. Like I use them to do my bidding because I'm the only one with power, and they're just kind of my little henchmen. But I've been with them for over 300 years, and they're henchmen I can't be without. Like, so I did find that very sweet. I did like the whole part where Becca was just like, "No, I'm keeping the book, Gilbert. Go back to your store. We'll talk about this later. Fuck off," because Gilbert, I think throughout this entire movie, annoyed me the most out of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I really wished when he got thrown by Winifred into the air that he would have just never come back. But unfortunately, and the whole Billy thing of him disappearing too and be like, oh, all her magic's broken. I did find that a little ridiculous and everything. But I did enjoy the ending. I thought it was very sweet. I hope they don't do another one. So
yeah, I feel like this gave us what we needed, and that was it. Like,
the only thing it did not give me what the hell was up with Sarah Jessica Parker's eyebrows? Did anybody notice that? I do want to. That was one of my major issues with like the costuming. Her eyebrow, like that. That's the only thing it didn't give me, but everything else pretty much did.
Yeah, I was like, Carrie, come on! You didn't go through all those seasons to have eyebrows like that, girl.
I think it's to like bring attention to something else and not how she's like so drastically different in this film.
Sure.
They also looked really good though.
Yeah, sure. I do want to point out the fact that like Mary was on Roombas, just like an ode to like vacuums. Oh my god, I died. I'm like, oh, this is genius. I loved it. So we're reaching the end of our stream. So let's talk about just like final thoughts on anything. Would you recommend it to anybody? Would you recommend to see the first one before this one? Any thoughts? Let's go to you, Yaya, first.
Okay, so I know I've been hating on this film this whole time. I did like it. I did enjoy it. I think there's a lot of things they did that was actually really, really clever. Like the potions and the baby faces and them like doing that kind of stuff. I thought there was a missed joke or like how many like children saw. I'm like, technically with child labor, there is a lot of children's souls in those things. I was like, but I'm like, I guess it's not Disney enough. I thought that was a joke that was missed. I actually really love, like a lot of jokes were actually really good. Like, the Gothic Golden Girls. I loved when like Sarah like grew balls for like 5 seconds. It was like, I am a loyal, faithful sister. And I love that. And then she goes back to me and I'm like, okay. Yeah. So there's like things that actually it's really good. And I really did enjoy it. And as I said, for me, the thing that made it for me was Billy. I would not have watched this movie if Billy wasn't back. So I'm happy with all the Billy scenes. I love Doug Jones. So as I said, Doug Jones can do no wrong in my book. But yes, I actually would recommend this movie. I think it's definitely like it makes my old shriveled millennial soul happy to see that. Yeah, it's like it's maybe not exactly what I wanted, but it's nice. And I definitely do recommend watching the first one. I think before this, because I don't know. I personally think that if I saw this today without watching the first one, I would not go back to watch the first one. It did not like hit me in a way that made me want to be like, oh, because like I'm gonna be really mean again. I'm also really mean. Is that like, the trio, the witches, they're old. Like Bette Midler's 76.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell, like, they don't have as much of the energy and the stuff they did back in 1993. Of course, I don't have the same energy I had like 10 years ago.
No.
So, like, you know, that walk in the Walgreens are going, that part, it didn't have that, like, energy and that, like, sharpness that had in the original one. So I definitely recommend watching the first one first. Get to know the character, get to love the character before watching this one, because this one, it's good.
Yeah.
But it's not great.
I think my favorite scene out of the first one, it's one that I die at every time, is when they're out during Halloween and everybody's in their costume and it's all three of them and they're like they're in front of Satan's house, I think.
Yeah,
Satan's house, and then there's an angel that comes around and like goes like
"Bless
this,
you."
and she goes, "Bless you," and Sarah Jessica Parker just screams her ass off. I die every single time that happens because I think it is the most funniest scene in a kid cinematic history. I think it is just so hilarious because she's like, ah! and you're right, like it missed that, I think, in this film. It missed that like quality that we didn't get.
It missed the trick-or-treating that we saw in Salem in the first one. Like kids running around in costumes, and like you had the festival, but the festival wasn't enough.
Right.
So,
there was barely any children in this movie.
Oh, I know.
At all. Sorry, my leg cramped. I don't know why it cramped. Eric, any last minute things? Any recommendations for people that want to watch this?
I do completely agree with you. I definitely do watch the first one before you watch this. Both times that I watched it today again just to like refresh my memory, but both times I watched it, it was a double feature. So we did watch the first one and then the second one. I think that's also why I like it much more, because I have immediate nostalgia of remembering right then.
Yeah.
But I recommend this movie for everyone. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, because like you said, she's 76 and she's not going to survive another one. But no, it's definitely a good movie to watch. It's lighthearted. It's not too serious. Yeah, watch it.
Yeah,
but the Billy scenes, I do have to say the Billy scenes, I did appreciate the Billy scenes. Yeah. I just found they could have pulled him in a different way.
Agreed.
Because I hated Gilbert, so therefore I found those scenes pointless because I hated Gilbert so much.
Yeah. I feel like there definitely could have been some more usage with Billy, and how if he got brought back, like there could have been some type of thing where, like, even in the first one, like he, sacrificed himself, and like there were some things where he like threw himself in the line of fire, that in this one it was just like you're just there, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I loved the character. I love Billy Butcherson. I love what he did in the first one. I would definitely recommend this film. I would definitely say you need to watch the first one in order for you to watch this one, just so that way you can get an idea of some of the things that are going on, especially with things like the salt, right? Like if you were into witchcraft or into you're Wicked, right? Like you understand a little bit of that. But in the first one, like there's a scene where it happens with the salt, and which is why in this one it kind of is like more prevalent, and they use Epsom salt, which I think is hilarious, because I'm like, I use that shit when I want to like calm down and take a bath, and like they used it to like stop there, and then it worked, right? Like that was the thing.
Actually, oh no, if you look at that one, it's not the salt that worked; it's Becca's magic. It turned blue, which was that's why it bothered me, is because like it was like it seems like everything was just due to Becca and not actual magic, like
that's true,
that mortals can use.
Because when Allison did it in the first one, it was like, oh, you clever little white witch, you're using salt, right? And this one, it was like, I can see that. I can see that. Well, folks, lovely lady and gentlemen, this is all the time we have to talk about this film that we just watched, and I'm so happy that we got to rate it. This is the end of Hocus Pocus 2, but shout out to my guests Yaya and Eric. Y'all are great. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can we find you, Eric, on the socials?
You can find me on all socials at Heartless7. I haven't posted in a while because I've been moving. So yeah, but you can find me there. I do post, and then you can find me here on Nom Talk.
Yes.
quite often now.
Absolutely. And we should never apologize for being human and, going through human things like moving. No, I'm just kidding. Yes. And Yaya, where can we find you?
So you can find me here on Twitch Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I do stream. You can find me at My Hamachi. You can also find me on YouTube, where I do videos about Chinese history, culture, traditions, all that fun stuff, at Jade Palace Yaya on YouTube. And you can find me on other social media such as TikTok, Instagram, all of that fun stuff, Twitter, either at Jade Palace Yaya or at My Hamachi. But I do have an event coming up. I'm going to be at PMX, October 21st to 23rd. I have my own little Hanfu interactive corner. So you want to come, take photos, do a scavenger hunt, which I'm like killing myself over right now. Check that out as well.
Yes, we love it. You can find me at City of Stars 13 on Instagram. I don't post that much, but I probably should post more. So hopefully I will. We'll see what happens. But yes, so thank you all for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join our Discord to keep the conversation going, as well as subscribing to our platforms at Nom Talk Network. We are everywhere, and it is at Nom Talk Network. Tune into our next show, which is going to be She-Hulk episode 8, which is coming on Friday. And that is that. I'm your host, Jordyn Orozco, again for the evening, and I hope you all have a non-horrific evening. Good night.